This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, thank you very much. And welcome everybody. Welcome everybody who's here. And a very, very warm welcome to Edward, our speaker tonight. These are a couple of notes that I generally go through to start the meeting. So please bear with me. There's just so much to say about Edward. I'm going to hope that he's going to help me a little by introducing himself as well. But if I'd like to just zip over what I've written here, he's the president and CEO of Inventor Process. It's a consulting firm that provides business development services. He's not a submissions company. I thought there was something different. And so I've learned something very interesting as well. He's got a dedicated team of invention professionals who work closely together, who will guide an inventor in the entire new product introduction process. He does three main things, which is the legal factors, the licensing, the deal, the manufacturing, and the marketing. And then he's going to tell us some very exciting things about two different services he offers, one inventormade.com and one readytolicense.com. It was quite difficult to summarize what Edward's going to talk about because he's got about, I don't know, 25 odd plus years of very valuable experience. So the easiest thing I did was to say, what does licensing product mean for an inventor? Because licensing is a new factor for South Africa in many ways. And what is licensing anyway? So welcome, Edward, and thank you very much. Welcome to the visitors. Our meeting format, our speaker does take over. Please say hello to us in chat. Add your questions to chat. Tell us who you are, where you're from. Please put on your cameras. It is a Zoom meeting. It's very nice to see you. When you're a speaker, it's very awful to look at a whole sea of black and white names. Please mute yourselves as usual during the session so that we don't get outside interference. Our disclaimers are in place. It's your decision to use what you may learn. But remember, don't disclose anything that's not already in the public space. As you hear, we are recording. And our co-host tonight is Julie Shively of Innovation World. So thank you very much, Julie, for stepping up. I love our quote, and this belongs to Edward. In our conversation, he said, if there's hope in tomorrow, there's power in today. And I snapped at it and I said, oh, Edward, I'm going to use that for your quote. I really like that. And I hope that you do too. Coming up soon, we've got Courtney Laskovich. I'm going to be showing a video of augmented reality, or whatever she calls it, to using it for your sell sheet. It's a recorded video of a previous meeting she had at IGA. And in case you missed it, it will be an opportunity for you to watch it again. And then after her, Gary Jeski is coming. Carrie does a lot of wonderful work in this space as well. And she's going to be talking about 6 types of prototype. So, and she's going to put them into context for us and how you would use them, etc. Generally, before meeting, we're going to be holding our 30-minute networking in future. So please do. And then I'd like to just do a couple of reminders here, but I don't know what's happening to this machine of mine. Okay. We have a service here pictured to the panel where it's a confidential service and an inventor can pitch to a specialist group of people that cover several specialist areas to get guidance on their invention and to find out what the next step will be. A lot of our information is on the website. We've also got GIFT coming up on the 16th and 17th of July. That is the Global Innovation Field Trip. And we've also got the IFG, that's the Invent Futures Global Challenge, coming up for November. That's the Global Inventors Challenge. And then I just have to tell you that in October, everybody can look forward to a fabulous surprise when we invite you to tea. We're going to be inviting you to tea in October to listen to a person who will be in Africa. And I'm excited at the moment. So as soon as I can, I'll be able to announce more details about that. that last entrance, I'm going to put it into chat, and perhaps you'd like to just copy it, because it's a very good reference to an introduction tape that has been made by Edward. So I will put that in chat. And without too much more ado, if I can hand over to you, Edward, and say thank you very, very much for giving your time to us.
Well, it's certainly my pleasure. And does anyone know what the inventor of the dry erase board first said when he invented his product? Boy, that's remarkable. Again, everyone, my name is Edward Ayres, and I am the CEO of Inventor Process. And it is certainly my pleasure to be speaking with you today. Celeste, I certainly want to thank you and the Institute of Inventors and Innovators for inviting me. Again, thank you, and it's my pleasure. And ladies and gentlemen, I am a numbers person. I find statistics fascinating. And did you know the #1 fear for 60% of everyone is public speaking? What does that mean? That means at a funeral, 6 in 10 would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. Another stat that I've discovered, and I find a little bit scarier, is that 90 to 95% of everyone with a new product idea will never do anything with it. I mean, they'll talk about it. They'll tell their friends about it. They'll tell their family about it. Heck, they'll tell anyone who listens about it. But all they'll ever really do is wonder what if. Guys, they're not inventors. They're dreamers. And if I can give you one piece of advice, and I'm sure most of you know this, is you don't want your life to add up to a series of what ifs. But I know that's not the case with you. You're here today, so you're the action takers. You are the doers, and that's exactly why it's my honor to speak with you. And we're going to discuss a few things today. We're definitely going to talk about licensing. We're going to talk about getting your product to the market and exactly what licensing is. But more specifically, I think it's important that we cover the characteristics of a successful inventor. I think we talk about goal setting. And the reason I think it's important that we talk about those two things is they're critical to our overall conversation, getting your product to the shelves of the marketplace. And once we hit on those 2 points, we're really going to dive in to the 2 ways to get a product to the marketplace. We're going to really focus on licensing your invention. And then I'm going to lay out a plan, a step-by-step process that you can actually implement to license your product. And first, Celeste did a great job introducing me. And if you see me reaching for my notes, just ignore that. But first, again, my name is Edward, and I have had the pleasure and the honor and the benefit of working with independent inventors for the last 23 years. Don't let this gray hair fool you. That's half my life. And since I've been doing that, we have developed a great team of professionals at Inventor Process. We're talking experts in new product introduction who bring to the table decades of experience in intellectual property, manufacturing, marketing, negotiations, and many other facets. And over the years, I have personally had the pleasure of working with numerous products, some really good ones that you might be familiar with, but I have a few personal favorites. And the Pizza Pro is one of those. It's a very simple kitchen utensil that allows you to get the perfect slice of pizza every single time. And then I often advise inventors to stay away from the holiday market because it's so niche and only there for a short time. But another one of my favorite products is the Twinkle Treat Basket, followed by the French Tip Dip. That allows you to get it's not a sandwich. It allows you to get the perfect French manicure and pedicure from the comfort of your home without ever going to the salon and that expense. And you can find those on QVC regularly. And a couple others are the Doggy Don't device, which is taking the pet market by storm, and the recently licensed Kicker. The Kicker doesn't tell you what it is, but it's a very simple piece of plastic. You can apply it to any sliding door and then open that door with your foot. Makes it super easy. And often you'll hear that products can't be licensed to huge corporations. And I'd like to share with you that the Kicker was licensed to one of the major hardware and tool manufacturers in all the world. So it can be done. And the team at Inventor Process, we do operate under one very simple philosophy. And that is, we know that we can have everything in life that we want if we'll just help enough other people get what they want. And with that in mind and wanting to be good stewards of the invention community, we've recently launched inventormade.com, inventormade.com. And that's actually a free platform for retail-ready inventors to sell their products without having to battle commissions and listing fees and so on. So it's just in its infancy. We've got great big plans for it. But if you're a retail-ready product and you're looking for a place to sell your product, inventormade.com might be right for you. And then something that we're working on, and Celeste had brought it up, and it's going to be an open innovation platform called readytolicense.com. And I'll be getting more information out about readytolicense.com as soon as we launch, probably about August, maybe September of this year. Now, guys, so being a good steward of the invention community is important to us at Inventor Process. Now, we're going to jump into the heart of our conversation. And the first thing I said we were going to talk about is the characteristics of a successful inventor. And I believe these characteristics are essential for a successful person, not just an inventor. And the great thing about these attributes, if you don't already possess them, is you can learn them, you can develop them, and then you can implement them. And the very first thing that I think every successful inventor must have is intention. Intention is the literal spark that will lead to action. And what do I mean by this? I mean, if you're an inventor, you have to commit to your invention. You have to be willing to pursue success, and you have to be deliberate in every one of your actions and every one of your steps. And then I want to go to education. And I'm sure you may have heard the old saying, if you want to earn more, you have to learn more. And ladies and gentlemen, I believe that's important. And what a lot of people don't realize is as they're learning something, it builds a fire on the inside of them. It literally excites you, and that will create hope. And as Celeste shared that quote, and it's not mine, I got that from Zig Ziglar. It states, if there's hope in tomorrow, there is power in today. Ladies and gentlemen, the one piece of advice, and there's going to be 10 one pieces of advice I'm going to leave you with, is you want to take advantage of these great, incredible resources like you have at the Institute of Inventors and Innovators. However, the most practical, beautiful, workable philosophy in the world won't work if you won't. Guys, action is the key, and you have to take action to succeed with your invention. Another point is I've discovered many inventors are as committed as a kamikaze pilot on his 37th mission. Now, that's not very committed. And in this business, you're going to hear more no's than you hear yeses. That's okay. You have to keep driving on. Perseverance is critical if you want to achieve invention success. And then I often hear people, and they say things along the lines of, if I only had Bobby's money, if I only had Sally's connections, if I only had more time, or if I was only as handsome as Edward. Actually, no one says that last one, but what I mean by that is they're really focused on resources. And what I want to volunteer to you is it's not about resources. It's about resourcefulness. You have to be able to accomplish the task at hand with the tools you have available to you. So don't focus on what everybody else has. Focus on how you're going to accomplish your goal. And then professionalism, it's critical. The reason many companies don't want to work with independent inventors is they're unrealistic and they're unprofessional. But that's okay. You can learn to be professional. And that all goes back to one of my previous points of education. Professional inventors, they invent for profit. They don't invent for ego. They understand their invention is a business and it's not their baby. So definitely you want to be professional when you're presenting your product to companies. And another point, and a lot of inventors and a lot of people in general, they're really adverse to this last one. And you got to be a risk taker. When it comes to new product introduction, there's no guarantees. So you certainly have to be willing to put it on the line. And if you don't have an appetite for risk, new product introduction probably isn't the venue for you. And when I talk about risk, I've heard it in the past. Edward, it's easy to tell people to be a risk taker. Well, I'll tell you myself, ladies and gentlemen, I am not reckless, but I am a risk taker. When I was just 23 years old, I had a very good job in outdoor advertising. I thought I was making all the money a person would need. And then I heard about the invention industry, and I quit with really not too much knowledge. I guess that might have been reckless, but I was fascinated by it. And I quit that job so I could take an entry-level position with an invention assistance firm. That was a few years later. I had worked my way up through that company. I was doing very well with them. And there was an upstart. They were just getting started. They had some great leadership. I wanted to be a part of that organization, and I quit my job and I went to work for them. I worked my way up the ladder and became the president of that organization. It was a great experience. And then I quit. I quit so me and my beautiful wife could found Inventor Process. And it's not over. That was 8 years ago. Just 6 short months ago, after 22 years of living in Las Vegas, we moved clear across the country, deep into the woods, bought a small country home, and we plan to develop a farm, a prototype shop, and we're going to start the new phase of our life and our business. So when I tell you got to be a risk taker, I'm telling you from experience. Now, before I dive into getting your product to the marketplace, I want to talk about setting a goal. And when I talk to a lot of inventors, I often ask them, what's your goal with your invention? And I often hear, I want to be successful. Well, guys, that's great. I don't know too many people who say, hey, I want to be a loser. But saying you want to be successful is not truly a goal. But the goal, what it does is it gives you a destination, something that you can recognize as success. So just close your eyes for a minute and envision your goal as a target. My question to you becomes, how in the world do you hit a target that you do not have? Setting a solid goal is critical to invention success. And we're going to talk about this a little bit further down the road, but let's get into the meat of why we're here today. And that's to talk about licensing your invention. And before I can jump into licensing, I think to have a good understanding of it, you have to have at least a brief understanding of the 2 ways of getting your product to the marketplace. And if I can figure this out, I'm going to start sharing a slideshow with you. Let me just make sure I have it open and running. And it's short, it's brief. I'm not going to bore you with a ton of slides. But let me just see if I can make this happen. Well, maybe I can. And maybe I can't. There we go. Share screen. There we go. Boop. Awesome. Hey guys, let me see if I can expand that just a little bit. Perfect. Now, when it comes to getting a brand new product to the marketplace, there's really just 2 ways to go about that. And way 1 is what in the United States we call venturing. I think in South Africa, it's probably referred to in a more general terminology of entrepreneurship. And in my own words, I call it the DIY method, do it yourself. And this is the route that many inventors initially envision. I mean, they want to lead a big company. They want to have lots of employees. They want to dominate their space, and they want to fly back and forth to meetings in private jets. I tell you, that sounds really good. But here's what venturing really means. It means long hours, sleepless nights, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, because you are now responsible for finalizing the design of your product, buying, building, renting a manufacturing company, getting all the tooling, all the equipment, the ad agencies, the marketing firms, the legal teams, the placement. You've got to get it all in line. And I'm not going to tell you it's undoable, but I will tell you it can take years of your lives and cost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to do it the right way. And there is a second option, and really, thank goodness there is. And that second option is to pursue a licensing agreement with a company who can manufacture your product, distribute it, and pay you a fair royalty. Now that sounds really good. But with licensing, there are some major pros and cons. The funny thing about the pros is they're always really, really obvious. But with the pros under licensing is you're going to reap the benefits of collecting royalties without ever making a major investment in manufacturing, distribution, or marketing. The cons, since you're not going to make that major investment in manufacturing, distribution, and marketing, You know who's going to keep the majority of your profits, right? That licensee. But that's okay. That's when you look at your target market. You might just get a small piece of the pie, but if it comes from a big enough pie, it has a way of adding up. Now, there are a few key hurdles when it comes to licensing. And those hurdles, very simply, are you need to own your product, you need to market your product, and you need to negotiate the licensing agreement. Not as easy as just 1, 2, 3, that's where I want to be. But those are the major hurdles. And when it comes to patent protection, a lot of inventors often ask me, especially if they're new to the realm, what is it? And the US Patent and Trademark Office, and I'm sure the CIPC in South Africa, has some really great definition. Something along the lines of it's a property grant that allows inventors to exclude companies from manufacturing, importing, or exporting their product, or something along those lines. Here's what I call a patent. It's the vehicle that allows independent inventors to collect royalties on their invention. And I know there are companies out there that will tell you, man, move full steam ahead for licensing without a patent. And I know there's inventors out there who have licensed without patents, and I know there's companies who have paid royalties without patents. But I want to volunteer to you that that is the exception to the rule and not the rule. What I know from 23 years of experience is that most inventors, they want to make money with their invention. And I know money isn't the most important thing in the world, but it rates pretty close to oxygen on the I gotta have it scale. And if you want to earn from your invention, I would suggest that you need legal protection. And the reason I would suggest this is many companies, they have standard submission agreements that very clearly state that the only thing that they will give you if your new product suggestion is not protected is a thank you, and that they're free to move on with it. Now, there are some really good companies out there that'll pay you up to $2,500 or up to $5,000 for an unprotected idea. I don't think $2,500 or $5,000 is what you had in mind. And those very same companies in that same agreement will tell you if you have legal protection on your product, they'll actually negotiate for the rights. So if you want to collect royalties, your best avenue is to have legal protection on your product. Without it, these companies can move forward without you. And while it might be unethical, they're not actually breaking the law. Legal protection makes your product more valuable and it makes you more credible. And guys, on a bit more serious note, if patents weren't important, then why does Mr. Wonderful on Shark Tank always ask about them? That's not really serious, a little bit of a joke there. But guys, you do have to own your product. The next thing you have to do is you have to identify those ideal companies who can produce your product, get it to the shelf, and pay you a royalty. And then you have to make them aware of your product, the opportunity it's presenting to them, and what you want from them. Guys, that's marketing. And once these companies start responding in a very favorable manner, it's negotiations time. And negotiations are where all the details of your licensing agreement are finalized. And doing this the right way is the difference between a valuable agreement that generates an income or a vanity piece, something you can put in a frame and put on your mantle. And so it's patent, market, negotiate. Again, it's not a 3-step process, but those are your primary hurdles. And ladies and gentlemen, licensing is generally the route that we recommend to independent inventors. In my opinion, that should be your goal. That should be your target, at least for most inventors. Now, a goal without a plan is just a wish. So how in the world do you achieve a licensing agreement? Well, I'm about to lay out a plan. And that plan consists, let's see if I can back up just a little bit. I can, good. There's 2 phases to the plan I'm about to lay out. Phase 1, that's your research phase. Phase 2, that's your action phase. And guys, research is critical. I have discovered that many inventors, when they get that product idea, they're eager, they're excited, and they jump in with both feet. And often they end up wasting a ton of time, money, energy, and effort that a little bit of research would have saved them. So when it comes to the research part of your product, and when you want to attempt to license it, and that's the goal, there's a few things you should look at. You should look at the feasibility of your product. And what does feasibility mean, and how in the world would you evaluate it? Well, I think there's 4 criteria to evaluating feasibility. And the first one is the manufacturability of your product. You have to ask yourself, how difficult is it to make my product in a modern factory setting with existing technology? And ladies and gentlemen, if your invention requires diamonds, if you need a flux capacitor to make it happen, then I would suggest you need to abandon that product. Keep your inventions simple. That's the key to manufacturability. And then you want to look at your target market. As an inventor who's licensing your product, like I said a few minutes ago, you only want to get a small piece of the pie. So you want it to come from a great big pie. So are there 7 people in the world who can use your product? Or are there 700 million people who can use your product? The bigger the target market, the better. And then another point is you want to look at, well, what the experts call marketability. And that's what it's called. But it's what I call wow factor. And very simply, does your product have the ability to turn the head of your target market? Will they open up their wallet and buy your product? And once you've looked at those 3 things, the last one under what I have marked as feasibility is your cost and price estimate, or what the professionals call the margin. And in a very a simple definition of that, if you will, is that means how much does it cost to make and provide your product versus what it would sell for, and how much is left over. Guys, enough has to be left over. There has to be enough profit in your invention to make it worthwhile to a licensing company to move forward with it. So you want to look at the manufacturability of your product. You want to look at your target market. You want to look at the wow factor or the marketability, and margins are important, your cost and price estimate. Now, let's say all of that came back positive. The research is not done. Now is when you should do a patent search, or you should hire a professional to conduct a patent search. And the one thing that shocks me often is I hear many inventors say, I don't need to do a patent search because if my product was patented, it'd be out there already. I can tell you there's nothing further from the truth. Most inventors know to get a patent. They just don't know what to do with it from that point forward. And that's why the vast majority of patented products never see the light of day, and they never generate an income for their inventor. And if you don't do a patent search, you might not find out about that existing product until it's too late. And what do I mean by too late? I mean, you've already invested the time, the energy, the money, and the effort into it, and then you get the cease and desist letter. So before you just jump in full steam ahead, I'd strongly recommend that you do a patent search and verify that you can own the rights to your product. Now, let's just assume all that came back with green lights. There's one more part of the research phase. And I'm going to suggest that you do a very small test market. And I know you're not patented yet, so you don't have patent pending status yet, so you have to be careful. So I would suggest that you conduct this with a friend, a trusted colleague, a family member. However, if you walk up to your friends and family right now and you go, hey, friends and family, I've got this really good idea. I love it. What do you think about it? Well, they're going to lie to you. If they don't love it, they're going to tell you they do. They're not going to want to hurt your feelings. So let me suggest you do your test market like this. You go, hey, cousin Joe, I've got a friend at work who wants me to invest in his invention. What do you think about it? What you've just done is you've given your friends and family an opportunity to be honest, to tell you exactly what they think about your product. And then you can use that information, if necessary, to tweak up your product. Or you can use that information to decide it's time to put the brakes on. But during the research phase, you want to verify the feasibility of your invention. You want to make sure that the margins are there to support new product introduction. You want to verify that you can own the rights to your product. Then you want to get some positive feedback from people, but you want to be careful how you get that positive feedback. Most folks won't want to hurt your feelings. So like I said, maybe suggest it's a friend or a coworker's idea so your friends and family can be honest with you. And then if all of that comes back positive, you're going to mash the gas and you're going to proceed to the action phase of the plan. And the action phase is focused. If I can get there we go. Boy, boop, boop. Sorry to jump all over there. Guys, the action plan is focused on patenting, marketing, and negotiations. And your very first hurdle is you need to file a patent application on your product. As I've said countless times already, legal protection is important. And in the United States, the vast majority of the time, I recommend to my clients that they start with a provisional patent application. I'm fairly positive South Africa has a very similar patent application. It may even be called a provisional patent. And I believe that a provisional patent application is the best thing since sliced bread. And the reason I believe this is they're inexpensive to file, they're very rapid, and as soon as you file your provisional patent application, your product becomes patent pending. You can scream about it from the market and start, or from the highest mountain and start your marketing. So I suggest filing a provisional patent application. There are a few things that you're going to need to be able to do this the right way. The first thing you're going to need is you're going to need a written description. And I have discovered that many inventors will load up their written description with all the benefits of their products. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a marketer. I love the sizzle. Benefits are important, but not so much when it comes to your patent. You want to make sure, that your written description covers a few points. You want to make sure that you highlight the unique properties of your invention. Make sure to thoroughly discuss the features and the combination of features that make those unique properties possible. And then you want a robust variation section. What do I mean by that? Does your invention require a button? If it does, will a snap work? How about Velcro? Could you even use tape? You want to make sure that if it's a feasible variation, that you're including that in your written description. And then you need a great mechanical description. And a mechanical description very simply allows a person who's skilled in the art to make your product. What's that mean? Well, skilled in the art means if I'm a door maker and your invention is a new type of door, that I should be able to build it from what's contained in your written description. And then you should have a usage summary. So you want the unique properties, the features and combinations of features, any variations, a great mechanical description, and then a usage summary. That's for your written description. The next thing you're going to need are illustrations. Now, I'm not for sure about with the CIPC, but in the US, for a provisional patent application, the illustration requirements are very minimal. I want to suggest to you that now is the time to build your virtual prototype, or maybe even your tangible prototype. And the reason I'm going to suggest this to you is a couple reasons, or a couple, maybe three reasons. And number one is, as you're designing that virtual prototype, it's going to help you flush out the design of your invention. And that's going to be valuable when you're writing your written description. Also, your virtual prototype, you can take different snapshots of it, what they call renders, and you can use those as the filing for the illustrations. And just as important, or maybe even more so, there's going to come a time right down the road when you need a visual presentation for your invention. So creating a virtual prototype at this early stage, it really knocks out 3 birds with 1 stone. So, and well, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up, yes, you're going to need the provisional patent application cover sheet. And for the vast majority of everybody, you're going to need the micro entity document. It just states that you're a small inventor and not a big company. So with a written description, some great illustrations, and all the necessary cover sheets and micro entity documents, you can then file your provisional patent. The moment it is filed, you become patent pending, like you see down there on the screen. And once you're patent pending, like I was saying earlier, this is when you should start the marketing aspects of your product. And I know I talked about them a minute ago, but the pros of provisional patent applications are they're inexpensive and they're rapid to obtain as far as patents are concerned. And the moment it's filed, you become patent pending and can start marketing your invention. The con, provisional patent applications were intended as a window of opportunity. So they expire just 12 months after the filing date. What do? Well, you market like heck during that 12 months. And that's the second part of the plan. The second part of the plan is, well, you've got to market your product. But to appropriately market your product, that doesn't mean you just go out there and start screaming about it to anyone who will listen. You need to prepare for the outreach. And so the next step of the plan really goes back to your goal. Your goal is to convince a company the smartest thing they could do is invest a lot of money into your product, get it to the shelves of the marketplace, and then pay you a royalty. Ladies and gentlemen, they're not going to make a decision like that just because me and you are out there with pom-poms telling them how great of an idea it is. They're going to make that decision based off verifiable facts, figures, and data that substantiate your invention as a good investment. And for that reason, I strongly recommend that you conduct marketing research, get all your ducks in a row and find out, who could use your product? What are those cost and price estimates? What's the potential need? What does the target market look like? This is going to help to educate you as an inventor. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to help make your licensing agreement that much more valuable when you can rely on those facts and figures to justify yourself in negotiations. So you had patenting, but now when we're talking about marketing, your very first step is to do your market research. And once you're armed with that research, a lot of the information you glean from it will be helpful in the next step. And the very next step is you need to identify key companies to target with your invention. What do I mean by key companies? Sorry, I was drying up on you. What I mean is, like I said earlier, companies who can mass produce your product and get it to the shelves of the marketplace with all their other existing products. The example I use is if you had a cupcake, you're looking for Little Debbie. You want Little Debbie to bake those cupcakes in their ovens. You want them to get them to the shelves of the marketplace with all the other cupcakes. And that way tonight, when I need something sweet, I can't help but see your cupcake. Little Debbie, that would be an ideal company for a cupcake. Now, guys, what we do at Inventor Process is my team of researchers, they actually comb through the internet, various databases. They even look for what I call shopping. They go to the store and they look for competing products. And then they find the companies who are producing those products. And once they identify those ideal companies, then they start to build on that list. What I mean by that is they want to have the contact information of those companies, addresses, phone numbers, if you can find them, emails. You want to know a little bit about their product lines, and it's great to know a little bit about their revenues. But more important than almost all of that, if at all possible, you want to identify some key decision makers at that company. Now, we do all of that for our clients at Inventor Process, but those are things you can do yourself. I mean, you have the power of the internet. It's right at your fingertips. So you can start looking for those ideal companies that have product lines that mesh with your invention. You can use the internet to identify how to get a hold of them. What is their contact information? A powerful tool is LinkedIn. LinkedIn will allow you to identify companies and allow you to identify many of the employees at that company. And all of a sudden, that's how you build your contact list. So under marketing, you definitely want to get your marketing research done. You need to be very knowledgeable about the marketing aspects of your product. And then you can actually use that information to build a target list of companies who can produce, distribute, and pay that royalty. But once you're armed with that information, what in the world do you do? Well, you've got to make them aware of your product. And I'm going to suggest something, and I know a lot of experts, they don't, but I do, and that is you should build an informational website on your product. Ladies and gentlemen, this website isn't geared to consumers. You're not selling units. What you're doing is you're providing an easy to access portal where licensees can rapidly log on, and within a couple of minutes, they can learn about your product. Now, people ask me all the time, is that overkill? I say, no, by no means is that overkill, or I wouldn't have recommended it to you. It's a great tool to have. And what your website should entail, as soon as someone logs on to it, they should be hit in the face with an animation or a video of your invention. Keep it short. I've seen too many 5-minute videos where I lose interest, less than halfway through. So a 50-second, a 60-second animation of your product, showing it off in all its glory. And just as important, making sure that the licensee's target consumers are featured in that animation. Again, if you're making doors, you want to show people buying doors or using your door, walking through your door. That's going to speak to those potential licensees. So you want to have a great animation on your website. And then in very concise terms, you need to tell them what your product is. Identify the problem and how your product is the solution. You need to let them know what you're asking for. And just as importantly, you need to tell them what's in it for them. I don't mean to be blunt, but that's what they care about. So an informational website should have a great animation of your product. It should tell them what your invention is, what you're looking for, and what's in it for them. And I believe an informational website is important for a lot of reasons. One reason is big companies are slow to act. If I'm presenting my product to a small company where the president of the company is also the VP of marketing, the VP of manufacturing, and well, he's the dockhand. Well, from just a simple sell sheet, he might be able to make a licensing decision. But larger companies have layers of bureaucracy that they're going to have to work through, and they're going to conduct meetings. Why not give them a very simple portfolio that they can access within a second so they can use that to explain your product to the rest of their team? Also gives you a great portfolio, a guideline to use as you explain your product to potential licensees. So ladies and gentlemen, I think an informational website is a great tool to have in your marketing quiver. Now, once you have that informational website, the hardest part about any website or the hardest part about the whole marketing process is making those ideal companies aware of your product. And that's where marketing outreach comes into play. Now, what you have to do is you're going to have to make these companies aware of your product. And the one thing I tell everybody, this is a contact sport. The more people you contact, the more often you contact them, the better you're going to do. Now, the things that you're going to need to be able to conduct an effective outreach strategy is, at a bare minimum, you're going to need that product animation, or you're going to need that video of your prototype. You're also going to need a great sales sheet. You may have heard me say the terminology sales sheet. Guys, a sales sheet is a brochure. That's all it really is. And it should immediately convey the benefit of your product, what your product is, and what you're after. Because you really have a limited amount of time to catch the attention of those decision makers. Your sell sheet needs to really speak to them. So you need that product animation. You need that sell sheet. You should arm yourself with some verifiable marketing information. And ladies and gentlemen, you need a great pitch. When the time comes, you need to be able to articulate what your product is, or what the problem is, how your product is the solution, what you want from these companies that ask. You need to see if they're interested in learning more. Now, those are the tools that you have to have. There's a couple tools that are nice to have. One of them is the informational website that I discussed just a few minutes ago. Another one is a full product proposal. Don't let that terminology mislead you. I am not talking about overwhelming these companies with a package of information this thick. I'm talking about taking that sales sheet, maybe a great yet brief introduction letter, and maybe a business card, and putting that into an envelope that you can mail directly to those decision makers. And so those are the tools that I would recommend you have to conduct an effective marketing outreach. I'm going to tell you how to use them in just a minute. But one of the things I want to touch on is I often hear the experts say relationships are critical to licensing your invention, and you've got to have them. I'm not going to argue with those experts. They're right. Relationships are a great thing to have. And so if you have relationships with the companies who can manufacture, distribute your product and pay you the royalty, yes, you want to utilize them. But a lot of the times, independent inventors, first-time inventors, they don't have those relationships. So they have to develop them. And I'm going to explain two different routes, very similar but different, that you can use to market your product to these companies, get your foot in the door, and establish those relationships. And route one is the route that I hear a lot of invention experts articulate. And it's a great route to use. And step number one in that route is you want to call those companies that are on your target list. And you want to ask them if they're open innovation companies. Then open innovation, that's a term we use very frequently here in the US. And I don't know if it's so frequently used in South Africa. From what I hear, open innovation is just getting off the ground. And actually, that's a huge benefit. You're there at the ground floor of an industry. So that's great. But open innovation literally means companies are open to receiving products from outside of their organization, and they might review them and they could potentially license them if they see a fit. Going back to open innovation, getting off the ground in South Africa, that's perfect. Like I said, you're there at the ground floor. But also remember, this is a global marketplace. Your marketing strategy isn't limited to your geographical location. You have the power of the internet at your fingertips. Feel free to use it. So route one in marketing your product, is you want to call those potential companies and you want to make sure that they're open innovation. If so, if they say, sure, we're acceptable to receiving products from outside, then you want to get permission to submit your idea and find out the right way to do it. And then using their prescribed method, you're going to submit your product information to them. Now, they'll usually tell you what they want you to submit, but typically they're going to ask you to submit that sales sheet. They're going to ask you to submit any type of marketing information, and I'm going to volunteer that you submit your mechanical description. Now, once you submit that information, I would not suggest submit it and forget it. I often tell my clients, where is the deal made? The deal is made in the follow-up. So after you submitted those products, you want to make sure to follow up with phone calls, emails. Again, you can use LinkedIn as a tool. But that is the route many experts suggest. You call the companies, you verify their open innovation, you submit, you get permission to submit, and then you submit using their prescribed method. That's great advice. But I'm going to suggest a second route. And a second route is a bit more aggressive. And yes, it's going to cost you a little bit more money, but I believe it's worth it. And here's exactly why I believe that. I believe it's worth it because how do you get permission to submit a product from an automated directory? You know, when they're asking you to press, the extension of the person you want to talk to, it's very hard to get permission to submit. And then a lot of the times, if someone answers the phone, it's a receptionist. And I am not being degrading. I'm certainly not trying to be rude, but in most organizations, a receptionist is a ground level or an entry level position. So when you're asking, are they an open innovation company? There's a good chance a receptionist won't know even what open innovation is. When you ask them if they make your new invention, they're going to tell you, no, they don't make it. Well, of course they don't, guys. Nobody makes your invention. It's brand new. So to be quite blunt, a lot of times when you pick up the phone to get permission to submit, that receptionist, she doesn't really know the strategic plans of the company, and she's going to tell you it's something they don't do. And so if you don't have those relationships and you keep bumping into that automated directory, what do you do? Well, I'm going to suggest that you employ a little bit of a mass marketing strategy. And I'm going to suggest that you pepper your target companies with your product information. So the very first thing you want to do is you want to create that professional proposal. Like I said, that's a nice terminology to say you're putting an introduction letter, your sales sheet, and potentially a business card in an envelope. And you're addressing that envelope directly to the decision makers of those companies. The one mistake that many inventors will make is they will stamp that envelope confidential. Don't do that. A lot of companies have a strict policy of not accepting confidential information. If you want to stamp the envelope patent pending to give it a little more credibility, we'll do so. But don't stamp it confidential. And once you have that proposal, drop it in the mail. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that mailroom clerk, that receptionist, or that secretary is going to receive that proposal, and they're going to put it into file 13, the circular bin, AKA the trash can. And I'm going to tell you, I just don't think that's the case. I don't know very many receptionists or secretaries or admin assistants who are throwing away mail addressed directly to their boss from another professional. They're going to err on the side of caution, and they're going to pass this one through. And at that point right there, when your proposal hits the desk of that decision maker, that's what I call the magic 7 seconds. In 7 seconds or less, that decision maker is going to make a decision, and it could impact the rest of your life. So you want the first thing they notice to be that beautiful sales sheet. You want to punch them in the nose with that benefit statement and let them at a glance know what your product is and how they can access more information to it. And well, make sure to include your contact information. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if from that sales sheet, they pick up the phone and they call you, hallelujah, praise God. But if they just go to your website, that's almost as good, because that's an opportunity for all the hard work that you've put into your invention to pay off and hook them and to get them interested. So the first step of marketing outreach under Route 2, the mass marketing plan, is you want to send out your proposals. But remember, this is a contact sport, so you don't send them and forget them. You have to follow up. And you're going to follow up with phone calls. Call that company and ask to speak directly with that decision maker. Sometimes you get to, sometimes you have to leave a message, and sometimes you don't get to do either one of them. But at least you gave the effort. You took the action. And after you make those follow-up phone calls, if they didn't let you speak to the right person, or if the right person said they weren't interested, I suggest you send out a follow-up letter. And I know if they told you they're not interested, why would you send out a follow-up letter to them? Because a no might only be a no right now. It doesn't have to be a no in the future. And sometimes no's can turn to yeses. So you want to be aggressive in that follow-up. So send your proposals, follow up with phone calls, send follow-up letters, and then do more follow-up with phone calls and emails. And ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you to repeat as necessary until these companies file a restraining order or until they tell you yes. I'm joking about the restraining order, but until they tell you no and to leave them alone. So guys, you got to be aggressive, and you want to make sure that your marketing materials are driving them to your informational website and they contain your contact information. And the one thing under either Route 1 or Route 2, or if you're employing them both at the same time, is you've got to stick to it. Earlier, I brought up perseverance, and that most inventors are as committed as a kamikaze pilot on their 37th mission. I love saying that. And the reason that I bring it up is you're going to hear more no's than yeses. And I have known a multitude of inventors who have spent a lot of time and money to get ready to present their product. They get their very first no, they're immediately discouraged, and they put all their marketing materials in their closet and they forget about it. I can assure you that that is not a recipe to success. That's a recipe to failure and a waste of time. So again, stick to it. The no's are your fuel. And the simplest of terms, I'm a sales guy, and I know the more no's I hear, put me closer to a yes. Use them as your fuel. And then earlier, I brought up the pitch. That was one of those tools that you got to have. So let's just assume that all your hard work is paid off and a company wants to learn more about your product. Well, that time should come. And when it does, you have to be able to intelligently and knowledgeably present your product. If you have this opportunity, you don't want to screw it up. So make sure to practice your pitch. And I'm going to volunteer to you that you have at least 2. I mean, they're pretty much going to cover the same thing, but you need that 30-second pitch something that's quick and fast that you can get across the potential licensees. And then maybe a 3-minute pitch when you have a little bit more time. The one mistake that I see when it comes to a pitch, and I'm sure many of the people watching today, they've seen the same mistake, is inventors will dwell on their personal background. The inventors will dwell on the story that led to the invention. And to be quite blunt, most licensees don't care and don't have the time to hear it. So when you're honing your pitch, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you can quickly explain the problem that many people are facing. Then you want to explain how your invention is the solution to that problem. Maybe dazzle them with a few of those great marketing highlights. And then the one thing that I see most inventors forget, and it's the key point of any pitch, is to ask. You got to tell them what you want, and then you want to tell them what's in it for them, and then you want to see if they're interested in learning more. So very briefly, explain the problem. Explain how your product is the solution. Give them just a few of the best marketing highlights, and then get to asking what you want from them. That will make a good pitch. I'm sure there's some other things that you can augment to make it even better. But if you hit those 4 criteria, you're doing you're doing better than most inventors. So practice that pitch, get in the mirror, get your friends and family in front of you, and hone it, because it could be the difference between invention success and, well, you know what the other one is, not success. And to do it right, we're going to talk about some of those characteristics. You're going to have to educate yourself on your product. You're going to have to educate yourself on how to pitch, and you're going to have to be professional in that pitch. And ladies and gentlemen, if everything is working out as we, forgive my slideshow, guys, I keep hitting the button and it keeps advancing or going back and forth. But if everything is working out, and these companies are responding favorably, the good thing about a small company is they can react very quickly. They're much more nimble than large companies. The bad thing about a small company is often the licensing agreement will not be as valuable as the one you secure with a major company. So the reason I bring this up, and I'm starting to get tongue-tied, please forgive me, is when you do the pitch, it's very frequently these companies aren't going to say, yes, let's license it. They're going to ask you for information. And if you don't have information, you got to go generate it. There's going to be a delay in the amount of time that passes from them asking to the time you get it to them. So when they're asking you for that information, make sure you have your marketing data available. Make sure you have that mechanical description available. Make sure you have your sell sheet and maybe even that informational website available to provide to them. And now they're going to review that product. And unfortunately, during this review process, many inventions fall out. They don't move forward with everyone that they asked for information on, and that's okay. The reason that's okay is you can use these interactions as a learning opportunity. You can learn from every single one of them. You might have to course correct. There might be a small tweak you can make to your invention so it better fits the needs of the licensee. And I think that last phrase there was important. It better fits the needs of the licensee. You're asking them to license your product and to pay you a royalty. So you want your product to fit into their product line, to fit into their strategic plan. And you might have to ask them how you can do that, how you can tweak your product to make sure it fits their needs. They might not give you any information on it, but don't be scared to ask, and be polite. If they reject your product, don't get upset, don't get your feelings hurt, and don't burn the bridge. Remember, I said a no now doesn't have to be a no in the future. So you will make sure to leave that bridge intact so you can go back to them and revisit them 3 months down the road or 6 months down the road. And I have never been shot, and I've never even been screamed at for following up with someone who had previously told me no, as long as I do it professionally and I'm not calling them every single day. So once again, perseverance is key. But let's forget about them saying no. Let's say they receive that great marketing information and they say, this is a good fit for our company. That's what you're after. And once you get that phone call or you get that email, then it's negotiations time. And guys, many of the steps I've laid out such as filing a provisional patent application, getting your market research done, identifying those key companies to target, and then generating the tools you need to conduct marketing outreach. The best thing about that plan is a lot of it you can do by yourself. Sure, you're going to have to invest some time and you're going to have to invest some resources, but a lot of it you can do on your own. But when it comes to licensing negotiations, you need professional help, or I'm going to strongly recommend that you get professional help, because if you negotiate the deal the right way, it can be very lucrative. If you negotiate it the wrong way, well, a licensing agreement can be a sheet of paper that you hang on your wall to feel good about yourself. That's what I mean, a vanity piece, but it doesn't generate an income. So there's some really key points when it comes to negotiating a licensing agreement. And the first one, it's not like TV negotiations. It's not a no prisoners approach, take no prisoners approach. Licensing negotiations is not a battlefield. What you're actually striving for is a win-win situation, one that benefits you, of course, as the inventor, but one that benefits that potential licensee as well. And the reason you want to do that is you're trying to build that relationship. You're inventors. You're going to have another product. You may want to reapproach this company with that second product. And when you reapproach them, you want them to be excited to work with you. You don't want them to dread your phone call. So again, licensing negotiations is not a battlefield. You want to strive for a win-win. But there are some key points that you have to hit on and that you have to be willing not to budge on, or the only person winning is going to be the licensee. And those key points that make a good agreement are the definition of your product. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe a definition of your product is even more important than your royalty amount. And here's why I believe that. But let me back up. What is definition of product? The definition of your product is exactly what the licensee is licensing from you. And I have read a lot of licensing agreements, often negotiated by independent inventors or novice inventors. And the definition simply goes, the product currently called or named the ABC machine and covered by provisional patent application 63 blah, 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 blah. Not a bad definition, but one phrase can truly bolster it and make your agreement much more valuable. And it should go something like this. The product currently known as the ABC machine, protected by provisional patent application number 63, blah, 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 and all modifications, improvements, and variations thereof. Ladies and gentlemen, modifications, improvements, and variations thereof means that you'll get paid for the future iterations of your product. And if you have a good product, one that has some longevity on the shelf, there's going to be iterations of it. And you want to make sure that you're collecting your royalty on them. Now, the next thing you want to make sure is to negotiate that royalty amount. I think definition is probably the most important, but royalties fall right under it. And most inventors, especially the ones that look at their invention as their baby versus their business, they want a 50% royalty. They want 40% or 70%. Again, those people are dreamers. They're not inventors. A realistic royalty on a consumer type product, right about 5%. Ladies and gentlemen, I've negotiated those contracts with a significantly higher percentage. And I've also negotiated licensing agreements with a lower royalty percentage. But right about 5% is realistic for most consumer products. And then you don't just want to negotiate that royalty amount, you need some guarantees. You don't want to sign an agreement that a licensee can put on their shelf and forget about. That's not going to make you a dime. So you want to know for a fact that they're going to make and sell, or at least make and pay you a royalty for a guaranteed number of units. And then and that way, every 3 months, you're collecting a royalty check for a guaranteed amount. Now, if they make more units and sell more units, and that's where your royalty comes from. It comes from the sale of the units, and it's based off the wholesale price of your product. But if they make and sell more, well, then you'll make more. But for whatever the reason, if their factory burns down, at least you'll make your guarantee. And you have to discuss time to market. It's going to take time for them to tool up. It's going to take time for them to manufacture and distribute your product. It's going to take time for them to talk to the buyers and get it into the retail. But you don't want to give them an unlimited amount of time. You know, do they need 6 months? Do they need a year? That's reasonable. If you got a really complicated product, and remember, I said keep your product simple. But if you have a really complicated product, like the ratchet strap alarm system that I was fortunate enough to work with a few years back, and we licensed it to what were they called? Sorry, Ready to Communicate. Bully Dog Security Products is their brand. They needed 2 years to finish the development of that product. We gave them those 2 years, but you have to have a time from once that licensing agreement is signed to the product being introduced to the marketplace, time to market. And I'm going to wrap up these key points. I know we talked about the definition. I know we talked about the royalty amount, talked about unit guarantees. We talked about time to market. A couple other things that you're going to want to make sure are in your agreement is the territory that you're granting the licensee. Do they get to sell your product in the United States only, in South Africa only? Or are you granting them North America or worldwide? And I can tell you in today's global marketplace, most companies are going to ask for a worldwide territory. You know, if they already have international distribution, I wouldn't fight them too much on it. Maybe they're the right company to give the whole pie to. And if they only have distribution in the southwest part of the United States, maybe that's something you're going to want to discuss about limiting. But remember, your good product can turn a small company with limited distribution into a big company with global distribution. But you do have to negotiate the territory that's covered. And then I like to believe that most people are inherently honest, but there are some folks that aren't, and there are mistakes that get made. So you do need to have the right to audit the books of the licensee. Not every part of their books and not every channel that they're working in, but as it pertains to your invention. Then why is that important? Well, if they've guaranteed you 10,000 units a year and they're going to distribute them all over, you know, the southwest part of South Africa, well, that's great. But if you're in vacation in Europe or the United States and you're starting to see your product pop up and you're not being paid for them, you have to have a right to go back and audit their books and see if they're selling more products than you're being paid for. Now, the great thing is if you discover that mistake, that's how I would approach it. It's a mistake. I'd give them an opportunity to rectify it. And how do they rectify it? By paying you the back royalties they owe you. That's exactly right. And guys, if you do find a mistake, they're actually going to pay for that audit. But if you were a little overzealous and there was no mistake and everything is in line and you're being paid exactly how you should be, well, then you're going to pay for that audit. But you need to have the right to conduct it. And here's one more little standpoint as I'm wrapping up negotiations is go ahead and ask for some upfront money. There's a good chance you're not going to get it. There's a good chance they might even laugh at you. That's okay. Go ahead and ask. The worst they can say is no. And when you don't make that a make or break standpoint, these companies realize you're easy to work with, that you're a good partner for them. And they might just say yes. And if they say yes, well, smile real big and pat yourself on the back. Upfront money generally in today's market comes as an advance against first-year royalties, but it's a check you can get right now. If it's available to you, jump on it. But you won't know if it's available if you don't ask. And I know I've already itemized these points again, but I believe multiple times, but I believe good negotiations is the difference between a good deal and a bad deal. So just one more time, royalty negotiations is not a battlefield. You do want to have a great and thorough definition of your product, and you need to make sure to negotiate a royalty amount. You got to get your unit guarantees in. You need to give them a time to market and have that etched in stone in the territory that you're covering. And if all of that goes well, then you have a successful licensing agreement. And a couple key points. I hope you're taking notes here. I can share my information and notes with Celeste, and she can provide it to you. And the reason that I say I hope you're taking notes is some of this information I've provided today, you might think, man, that's pretty good, and I'm going to remember it. But the odds are you won't. So I'm going to recommend take those notes, revisit them frequently, because repetition is the mother of learning. That makes it the father of action, which means it's the architect of accomplishment. And that's why you'll often hear me repeat myself as I go through this presentation, because repetition is critical. And guys, that is the plan. When you licensing very simply means you're going to authorize a company to mass produce your product, get it to the shelves of the marketplace, and pay you a fair royalty. The three big hurdles that you're going to have to overcome is you're going to have to own your product. It's patent protection. And you have to own it if you want to ensure you get a very valuable licensing agreement. The next thing you have to do is you have to negotiate your product. Or I'm sorry, you have to market your product. And the reason you have to market it is it doesn't matter how great it is if no one knows about it. And then you got to negotiate the deal. Patent, market, negotiate. Those aren't, that isn't a three-step process, but those are the major steps. And then guys, I want to wrap this up by just hitting on a few key points. I think for most inventors, licensing your invention should be your goal. To accomplish that, you're going to have to reach out to these companies in a very professional manner. So you're going to want to educate yourself. And just in closing, a couple housekeeping points. As an inventor, you are going to have to invest time and money into your invention. And that's regardless of what other people tell you. I know there are experts out there. Some of them are my friends. Some of them I really enjoy. And they preach that an inventor should never have to invest in their own invention. And I'm going to tell you, those people are either mistaken or they're deceiving you. They have an ulterior motive. As an inventor, and this might not be what you want to hear, but it's what you need to hear, you're going to have to invest in your invention. But the great thing earlier is I talked about resourcefulness. The more you can do on your own without taking a shortcut, the less money that you're going to have to invest. But the more professional assistance you need, and there's nothing wrong with professional assistance, the more you're going to have to invest. So I would definitely suggest having a budget set aside to invest into your invention. Another key point, and Celeste brought this up earlier, is there is a significant difference between an invention submission company and a professional service provider. Invention submission companies, they often sell you on the ease of licensing a product and that they're going to do all the work for you. Well, I can assure you, licensing a product is not easy. And when they're telling you that, or selling you on the ease of licensing it, and that they're going to do all the work for you, and all you have to do is pay them and then sit back and wait for the "you made it" phone call. Here's what I know. The "you made it" phone call very rarely, if ever, comes. You got to stay involved. Don't trust your success to someone who doesn't care as much about your invention as you do. Ladies and gentlemen, many of these invention submission companies, the only thing they care about is your upfront money. So my advice, stay away from them. And this might not be the right thing to do, but I'm going to name names. You want to stay away from companies like Invention Help, Invention Home, Davidson. They're great at selling their service and they're great at taking your money, but the results don't add up. Now, service providers are something totally different. With a service provider, you're going to want companies that generally have people who are experts in new product introduction or one facet or another, and they provide you a valuable service. Maybe they're experts in patenting or prototyping, and you're paying them for that service. And then you can use what they provided to you. You can use it to get your product or to market your product and attempt to license it. But the one thing you have to do is you have to stay involved and you have to market your product. And then I'm almost done because I know I'm out of time. You want to continue to learn. Once you set a goal for your invention, you need to continue to learn how to achieve it. And then you have to put what you learned into action. I'm going to suggest that you take advantage of great resources. I mean, the Institute of Inventors and Innovators has great resources available. There's a lot of other experts out there that offer free training, and there's videos online. So go ahead and absorb as much as you can, but be careful who you learn from. I often suggest that people who haven't had success in the arena are not great to learn from. So the failed inventor turned expert should not be your mentor, but continue to learn. And earlier I told you about the philosophy we at Inventor Process operate under. And that is, we can have everything in life that we want if we'll just help enough other people get what they want. I would suggest that you use that philosophy. Get involved in inventing. If there's any volunteer opportunities at the Institute of Inventors and Innovators, take advantage of them. If your friends and family have an idea, go ahead and try to help them, because as you are volunteering and as you are assisting others, you might just make the contacts that can catapult your product to invention success. And finally, and I know I run long and I do a lot of stuttering and I get tongue tied, but finally, I do believe if you have a quality product and you have a positive mental attitude, that each of you can do this. I believe this because I know that you were designed for accomplishment. I know that you were engineered for success, and I know that you were endowed with the seeds of greatness. All you have to do is go do. Guys, that was a lot of information. I'll be glad to share all of my notes. I hope it made sense and I wasn't just all over the place. If you have questions, fire away. Let's have them. Don't be shy.
Edward, thank you very much. I was a bit sneaky. I actually put a note in the chat saying that I was not going to disturb you because you were on such a roll. And this information that you've offered us tonight has been quite magnificent in terms of product and subject and all sorts of things. It was really a wonderful presentation. So I need to say thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
There are a host of questions, and I don't know if people have got time to wait with questions. Please go ahead and ask. Can I have, does anybody have a question that they would like to talk about right now?
Thank you, Gavin.
Anybody? Eddie, would you like to go ahead? And welcome. It's so nice to see you here tonight. Can we have your camera on? Eddie?
Can you see me now? Can you see me?
Not
Can
yet.
you hear me?
Not yet. But we can hear you.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much to Edwards. It was so informative. Very, very
my pleasure.
I really enjoy it. Just one question for me that you're talking about. Do you make it available to everybody, to Tom and Dick? And if so, is there no danger of somebody out there, a scout, may take your idea? I know it is, there's a provisional patent on it, but you may take that idea and modify it, improve it, and then develop second generation product. Is that there's no possibility? I know abilities there might be, but is there no danger of that happening? Thank you.
And I would love to answer that question, but I got a lot of feedback and it was breaking up on me. Did anybody catch that question, and can they give it back to me?
I think it was to do with when you're making your presentation, do you need to be afraid of people stealing your idea? Am I correct, Eddie?
Yeah, I'm talking about the website, the informational website.
Yeah.
When you put the product and the information there, there's no possibility of somebody taking the idea itself, improving, making some amendments, and then developing a third generation product thereafter.
Yes. So Eddie, that's a great question. I appreciate it. There is always a risk of people taking your product and knocking it off There is always a risk of people looking at it, finding ways to improve it, and then proceeding with it. I call those people inventors, by the way, because most products are improvements to existing products. So yeah, there is that risk. Now, I don't think your informational website puts you at huge risk, because this isn't something that you're mass marketing to the world. You're not developing a lot of time in SEO, and your everyday consumer is not out there searching for your invention because, well, they have no idea it exists. This is a tool to use with potential licensees. Now, bad people, thieves, liars, it doesn't matter what type of legal protection that you have. It doesn't matter if you have an issued full-fledged utility patent application. Well, bad people are going to do bad things. The great thing about having a quality patent application filed, or even an issued patent, is it gives you a leg to stand on when it comes to recourse. And when you're doing your research on the right companies to target, you might want to just do a little research to see what their reputation is. I mean, do they have lots of litigations where they've been accused of stealing products in the past? So again, an inventor's number one fear is someone's going to steal their product. You're going to have to get over that fear to become a successful inventor. God forbid someone would steal your product. If they do, well, you have to take the appropriate steps to reclaim it and to protect yourself. But if your major fear is someone's going to steal it, that's going to cause you never to present it, and then you'll never be successful. So that risk is always there. You minimize it by doing things the right way, such as filing a quality provisional patent application and making sure that your embodiments, AKA your variations, are well-rounded. Earlier, I said if you got a button on your invention, would a snap or Velcro or tape work just as good? And if they would, they need to be included in the embodiments of your invention. That will keep out the competition as long as possible. But Eddie, if you have a good product, you've licensed it, and it's selling all over the world, well, your patent's only going to keep out the competition for a little bit of time. There's going to be companies that are looking for ways to improve upon it and looking for ways to get into that market. It is the nature of the business.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, would you like to go ahead?
Yes. I don't know, can he briefly elaborate on the services of your organization, how that works if someone comes to you, and do you do a total help, or do you provide individual services of just the IP search or prototyping or that type of thing?
Sure. Mark, there's nothing that I do briefly, so I will try. I got a text from my wife. She was telling me to hurry up. I was running way too long there. No, Inventor Process, we are a well-rounded service provider. And we have experts that with experience in many facets to new product introduction. So we can actually assist you with analyzing your profit to see if it's feasible. And then we can walk you through, not walk you through, that's not good terminology. We can assist you with the patenting, the marketing, and the negotiations. Now, the great thing about our firm is we are flexible, we are agile, and you can come to us at any stage in the invention process. I have had clients that come to me and they have a sketch on a napkin, and our team can then advise them if they have something that has, you know, an opportunity of success, and then we can help them develop it into a real product that is licensable, or we can advise them to put the brakes on. And I've had clients come to me where they've done everything and they've got a company ready to negotiate. They just need expert advice in negotiations, and we can jump in there. Don't take this the wrong way, folks. Those are my favorite clients. But as far as services we provide, just a few of them, we provide development services, we provide patent research services, and with our patent searches, we always provide a novelty assessment. That is the opinion of the patent practitioner if legal protection is or isn't available. But then we can help you design your prototypes, your virtual prototypes, your marketing reports, your animations. Really, I hate to say from A to Z, but we can provide a big range of services. With those services, the one thing we do, and I don't just say, hey, here's our service list, you know, what can you afford? That's what those invention submission companies do. We literally talk with our inventors. We discuss their goal. If they don't have one, we help them set one. And then we help them implement a plan so they can market their product with our assistance and guidance and advice in the background. My suggestion, if you have an idea that you're interested in licensing, we do offer a cost and obligation free evaluation of the product. That evaluation is not to guarantee success. We use it to eliminate products that don't stand a chance, and we evaluate them on the very same criteria that I shared with you at the beginning of the presentation. But inventorprocess.com will give you a great layout of some of the things we do, and it'll give you a chance to contact us, and I'd be glad to talk to you further about your invention.
I think, Edward, I'd like to just add, from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the inventor who's using your services is the person doing the work under your guidance. Yes. And so you're not saying, give me your idea and pay me lots of money and we will get you to market or whatever it is. I'm coming to you step by step in terms of my particular invention, whatever I particularly need, within the ambience of those 3 main steps. But whatever else I may need along the way, but I am doing the work if I'm the inventor when I'm using your services. Have I got that correct?
That's 100% correct. Now, again, our team can help you develop a goal. We can help you develop a plan, and then we can provide the services to arm you with the things that you need so you can go out and market your product and secure a licensing agreement. And then often we jump right back in when it comes time to negotiations, and we walk hand in hand with our clients at that point. But all of our clients, and we have a few online here now, they all have to take an active role in the protection and the promotion of their product. We don't do that for them. We educate them and then arm them with quality services so they can do that.
Thank you. Edward, I have a question here in chat. What is the difference between manufacturing a product and licensing a product?
That goes right back to the 2 primary ways of getting a product to the marketplace. And I think that is, Miss Trina. Hi, Trina. 2 ways to do that. Manufacturing a product or venturing simply means that as the inventor, you're going to have to finalize that design. You are then going to have to find a manufacturing company to contract with. You will then pay for the prototyping, the tooling up, and then for the production of the units. And that company will then turn those units over to you, pat you on the back, and wish you good luck with mass producing them. With mass selling them. So with production, you're responsible for having the units made, and you're responsible for selling those units. And if you don't have a real great background in new product introduction, that's not the route I would recommend to independent inventors. What I would recommend is licensing, which, as we were discussing, that means you're going to authorize a company. Maybe if you're in the door business, you're going to authorize Primeline to manufacture those doors, get them to the shelf of the market, and pay a royalty. It's a lot less expensive route to pursue than it is venturing, but there's a trade-off. If it's a lot less expensive and it's not as risky, well, then the payoff, the royalty, what you're going to receive is a lot less than if you go and you pay to have it produced, you set up all the marketing and advertising, and you're selling them. But that route requires a lot of initial investment, and well, it's a lot more risky than it is to license. So do it yourself, license. I typically recommend license when it comes to an inventor.
Thank you, Edward. I have another comment here. Can we assume that the website has private links only, this informational website that you've suggested?
Sure. I mean, again, there's a lot of different ways that you can secure your website. And if you want to make it private, you can implement private links. I don't fall under that school of thought. I fall under the school of thought as soon as your provisional patent application is filed, as soon as it has been stamped patent pending, that you scream about your product from the highest mountain. You go out there and you make as many potential licensees available or aware of it as possible, because you are going to hear more no's than yeses. And something else that I recommend, and I have this in my notes, but I tend to wander, is you don't want to approach these licensees one at a time. For instance, you've got that great list of companies. You don't just want to, approach this one and then wait for them to say yes or no and then move on to the second one. The reason I recommend that you approach all of them at the same time, or as close to the same time as possible, is that you are going to there might be a good response in that first 5, and there might be a great response in the middle, and there might be a great response in the end. And then you could use all 3 of those responses as leverage to drive up the value of your licensing agreement. But if you're just approaching those companies one at a time, and company number 2 on the list says, yes, let's proceed, well, you never got an opportunity to see what the rest of those companies thought about your invention. And then you did during negotiations, you have to fake leverage versus having real leverage. And real leverage is meaning more than one company interested in your product. So once you're patent pending, when you're making those initial presentations, I don't believe in non-disclosure agreements. There's no time for them, and most companies won't sign them right off the bat. So get your provisional patent application in place and aggressively start marketing your product. And I don't keep a bunch of things secret at that point. Now, I say I don't keep a bunch of things secret. I am also not going to initially give away the form. I'm not going to tell them all the unique functions that go into my invention to make it achieve its desired result. But I am going to give them enough so they can make a decision if they're interested in learning more or not. And then if those companies are interested in learning more and you have some real intellectual property that you've been keeping secret, maybe then will they sign a non-disclosure agreement and you can share that with them. But no, not a lot of private links. File your patent application, get aggressive in your marketing.
Okay. We've got time for perhaps one last question. Anybody?
Is it from Harry? I see Harry has a question. What are your views about licensing to many or rather to one exclusive company? So my views on that is if you can license to a multitude of companies, go ahead. Odds are you cannot. The vast majority of companies are going to require an exclusive agreement. They're not going to want to make a major investment in your product and pay you a royalty just to turn around and immediately have competition. The great thing about a well-crafted patent application or patent is that it gives you a limited monopoly on your product. It gives you the right to exclude others from joining in on that product field. So these companies aren't going to want to pay you just for you to turn around and license it to someone else, and they have instant competition on the marketplace. So 95% of the time, you're going to have to settle on an exclusive agreement. There are some exceptions to this rule. For instance, if you have a product that can fit multiple different markets, and maybe licensee A only has the ability to distribute it in the United States to one particular market, and licensee B can distribute it throughout the rest of the world to multiple markets, at that point, you may be able to settle, or you may be able to have multiple agreements. But most of the time, 95, 99% of the time, you're going to have to sign an exclusive agreement, or they're not going to sign one with you.
Okay. Gavin, I would like to ask you if you would like to close the meeting for us. By way of introduction, ladies and gentlemen, Gavin is our financial director at the Institute. And unfortunately, our chairman had to leave a little early. So Gavin, could I hand over to you to close the meeting with Edward?
Sure, Celeste, thank you. And thank you in particular to Edward. I mean, that was a fantastic session. I mean, I don't think it's possible to cram the amount of information that you did into an hour and a half. But you did, and you can see all the comments that are in the chat, which kind of attest to that. A huge amount, and I think what's really useful is for our members and people associated with our art to kind of go through this in a bit more detail to kind of digest it, because there is so much to kind of take in. but hugely useful, hugely relevant for our market as well. In particular, you know, the newbie inventor who doesn't quite know what to do and what to expect. And it just kind of opens up the doors of the whole invention process. And I just want to thank you for your time and for the work that you're doing. I think it's fantastic and greatly appreciated.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me. And I hope I didn't try to cram, you know, too much information into it, you know, 10 pounds of potatoes into a 5-pound sack, right? But thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Edward, it was an absolute pleasure. I'd like to say thank you and good night to everybody. And thank you very much for staying over or staying beyond the time. And Edward, I just need to add my great thank you to you and for visiting us and sharing your knowledge. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Great job.
Bye, everybody.
Oh, one more question. We are headquartered in Las Vegas, Nevada, but we have professionals all over the United States. We're a really decentralized company, but we're headquartered in Las Vegas, and that's where our corporate office is. But for instance,
I'm in Las Vegas too. Thank you.
Okay, and then to that final person who's asking, will the recording be available? Yes, it will be available. We'll be putting it up onto our website and it'll go onto our YouTube channel. I'm not a particularly tech smart person, so it might take a couple of days, whereas the Americans do it within a minute. I've still got to learn that minute trick. But yes, the recording will be made available to everybody. So once more, thank you, Edward, and good night. Good night, everyone.
Good night.